On their third wedding anniversary, Vivian found a diamond solitaire in Ethan's private study. It wasn't for her. The inner band was engraved with "To My Beloved," while her own wedding band carried the word "counterfeit." She slid the plain band off her finger and drafted the divorce papers. Ethan dismissed it as a tantrum. "Anything except love I can give you." The day the papers were filed, Vivian walked into Sterling Industries with a gorgeous younger boyfriend on her arm. Ethan trashed the executive suite on the spot. Later, red-eyed, Ortiz kept vigil beneath her building for 7 nights straight. "Please come back," Ortiz begged. She flashed her new rock-sized diamond and tightened her arm around the man at her side. "Meet the actual grandson of the To My Beloved founder. I've never needed anyone to buy my ring for me." Third wedding anniversary. Outside, dusk pressed the skyline into a charcoal silhouette. Vivian, still in her apron, set the final dish, steamed sea bass, on the table beneath the amber kitchen lights. The fish was almost translucent, striped with hair-fine scallions and slivers of ginger, fragrant oil still crackling on the soy-slicked surface. Next to it sat a pot of Buddha jumps over the wall she had simmered all afternoon, Dylan, and several small seasonal sides she'd arranged in cool, clear colors. 3 place settings perfectly aligned. Finally, she wiped her hands and took the anniversary cake from the fridge. It was small but exquisite. The piped icing followed a design she had sketched herself. A simple meandering vine circling 2 tiny cartoon figures leaning against each other. She had copied them from the snapshot on their marriage license, the one Ortiz teased her about for being childish. Childish. Emery let her fingertip brush the chill, sugared cheeks of the figures. Maybe so. The living room television murmured financial headlines. Above the sofa the wall clock inched toward 7. Ortiz still wasn't back, no call, no text. The leather loafers she had polished this morning waited alone by the door. She untied the apron, draped it over a chair. The aromas of food cooled and thickened until they felt cloying. She crossed to the private study, hesitated, then pushed the door open. Neatly stacked files, the faint bite of his aftershave mingling with old books and sandalwood. His sanctuary, more satellite office than shared home. She had only come for a pen to sign some minor HOA form. Her glance skimmed the desk, nothing. She slid open the left-hand drawer. Receipts, spare batteries. About to shut it, her knuckles brushed a hard velvet box half hidden beneath some notebooks. A feather-light flutter struck her first, followed by an absurd premonition. She lifted it out, midnight blue square, discreet silver logo of a bespoke jeweler she recognized. 3 years today. Could this be a surprise, hidden here for a dramatic reveal after whatever kept him late? She opened the box slowly. Light spilled out. A diamond solitaire, the central stone huge and chase-clear, flared cold fire under the ceiling bulb. The band was a coiled vine paved with smaller stones, lavish, unreal. Her breathing stopped, not from the price tag, but from a razor-sharp certainty. This was not her taste. Ethan knew she disliked ostentation. Her wedding band was a plain band. Ortiz had even murmured back then, better simple. This one screamed. She pried it free, the metal icy against her skin, lifted it to the light, and squinted at the inner rim. Tiny script, "To My Beloved." The blood drained from her face, then rushed back in a roar. She looked at her left hand. 3 years of wear had begun to blunt the edges of the modest ring. She tugged it off, fingers trembling so badly it took 2 tries. Inside, deeper and rougher, 3 characters she had asked the craftsman to etch stared back. Counterfeit. The answer had always been there, looped around her finger every second of every day. Hidden by her own hope. Counterfeit. Then whose beloved was the diamond shouting about? Footsteps in the foyer, the housekeeper's soft greeting. "Welcome home, Mr. Sterling." Morgan. She only stared at the 2 circles in her palm. The blaze and the dull, side by side like a cruel joke ridiculing every tender minute of the past 1,000 days. The footsteps halted at the study door. "Vivian." Ethan's voice carried its usual post-meeting fatigue. "What are you doing in here?" "Supper's on the table." She turned. Ethan stood with his suit jacket folded over one arm, top button loosened. Backlit, his features were shadowed, but the aura of detached command still radiated. His gaze flicked to her hands and the mismatched rings. A micro-frown, gone in a blink. No guilt, no panic. Only the irritation of someone whose private drawer had been opened. "You've seen it," Ortiz said, walking in and tossing his jacket onto the sofa. "I hadn't planned on you finding it tonight." Her throat felt lined with grit. She had to swallow twice before words came. "Beloved, who is she?" Ortiz settled behind the desk, tipping back in the leather chair, eyes on the night outside. "Her name doesn't matter." Vivian, we've been married 3 years. You know exactly what this marriage is. The title of Sterling Industries Mrs. carries weight, wealth, respect, social cachet. I've delivered all of it. Except love. I've never pretended that was on offer. Anything except love. Vivian heard herself strangely calm. So all the warmth, the shared silences, the nights their bodies locked as though they might actually merge. All of it had been salary, not sentiment. She was a well-kept placeholder. An engraved counterfeit permitted everything except his heart. Then what about this counterfeit? She lifted her plain band, voice soft yet edged with a sharpness she didn't know she possessed. Was that another gift you could bear to give? Or a constant reminder that I'm nothing but a stand-in? Ethan finally looked at her. His eyes were deep and cold as an iced-over lake, reflecting nothing. You picked the ring, and you asked for the engraving, Ortiz stated, a faint, nearly invisible sneer tucked into his tone. I never promised you love, Vivian. You chose to hope for something that was never on offer. Something that was never on offer. Yes, she had been stupid. Thinking time could breed affection, that she could warm a stone. Thinking the way his gaze sometimes lingered on her hair, the way Ortiz occasionally catered to her taste, the light kiss Ortiz pressed to her forehead when Ortiz came home late. Thinking maybe, just maybe, a tiny part of it was real. Now she saw it for what it was, Mr. Sterling's habitual maintenance of a lawful possession, or an emotionless dalliance with a counterfeit when the mood struck. A bone-deep chill spread from her heart to every limb. Vivian stood there feeling like a clown stripped bare beneath a spotlight. Every scrap of happiness she'd imagined disintegrated under his few calm sentences, exposing the ugly truth beneath. So, she heard herself say, voice eerily steady as if coming from someone else, this beloved is meant for the woman you truly want. When she returns, or when the time is right, I'm to step aside. Is that it? Ethan hesitated. Ortiz didn't deny it. The silence cut deeper than any admission. For now, you're still Mrs. Sterling, Ortiz said at last, as though granting a favor. Don't overthink the rest. Put the rings back and come eat. The food's getting cold. Don't overthink. Vivian watched him turn back to his phone, thumbs flicking across an email, dismissing her meltdown. In his eyes, this probably wasn't even a meltdown, just a woman's harmless fit to be soothed with a few pretty words and perks. Because apart from love, Ortiz could give her anything. She gently set the dazzling, beloved, back into its velvet box and closed the lid. Then she placed her own plain band, engraved counterfeit, inside as well. The two boxes sat side by side on the desk's edge. One new and luxurious, one old and modest. Like her and him, like beloved and counterfeit, like every uncrossable chasm of their 3-year marriage. Ethan, she said, voice level, let's get a divorce. His scrolling finger froze. Ortiz looked up, irritation real this time, gathering between his brows. What did you say? I said, she repeated word by word, divorce. The corner of his mouth curled in a humorless smile, as though she'd told a tasteless joke. Vivian, don't be dramatic. Over a ring. Ortiz leaned forward, elbows on the desk, scrutiny and pressure in his gaze. I told you, except for love, I can give you everything. You know exactly what the title Mrs. Sterling means. Without me, what will you have? How long will your little gallery last without the Sterling name behind it? Blunt, brutal appraisal. In his eyes, her worth hinged entirely on being Mrs. Sterling. Stripped of that title, she was nothing. Her heart felt clenched by an invisible hand. Pain numbed her fingertips. Yet from the wreckage of that pain rose something stronger. Despair alloyed with a strange, fierce sense of rebirth. I'll have freedom, she answered, meeting his gaze with a clarity and steadiness she'd never felt before. The right to stop being someone's shadow. The right to neither love nor hate you anymore. The casual indifference finally slid from his face. Ortiz stood tall and imposing. Freedom? Ortiz chewed on the word as if it were infantile. Vivian, do you honestly believe this circle will grant you freedom? Leave the Sterlings and you're no one. The same people who flatter you now will trample you tomorrow. You won't survive it. Then let it be my choice, she shot back, unyielding. I'll have Diane draft the papers. Don't worry, apart from a few worthless paintings in my gallery, I won't take a single thing that belongs to the Sterlings. Including the ring engraved counterfeit, including every gift Ortiz'd been willing to give. She turned away without waiting to see his expression, spine straight, step steady. Behind her, the study sank into deathly silence. She didn't look back, so she missed the sudden darkening of his face, the way his fists clenched until the knuckles blanched. In his life plan, Vivian walks out had never been an option. A docile, low-maintenance, presentable counterfeit was supposed to stay in place until Ortiz no longer needed it. Back in the bedroom, Vivian locked the door. She didn't turn on the light. Under the neon glow that city nights forever leaked through the windows, she sat at the vanity. The mirror showed a pale face with eyes unnervingly bright. She removed the pearl earrings Ortiz once brought back from an auction, unclasped the diamond bracelet Ortiz given her for a birthday, laid them one by one into the jewelry box. Objects that once thrilled her, that she'd believed were tokens of care, now felt merely cold, weighted by price tags. She opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "Divorce agreement template." Each click of the mouse sounded like a decisive countdown in the hush of the room. The next 2 weeks were hectic yet strangely calm. Vivian hired a divorce lawyer named Diane, well known for representing women against powerful men. She stated her terms without drama. Split quickly, cleanly. She wanted only the small gallery in her name and the few items she'd bought with her own earnings. Diane, sharp and efficient, adjusted her glasses. "Mrs. Sterling, rather, Ellis, are you certain? Under the law you could claim far more." "I'm certain," Vivian replied, quiet but final. "The faster the better." Diane asked no more questions and prepared the papers. Ethan's initial response was silence. The agreement went to him and disappeared like a stone dropped in the ocean, Casey. Vivian didn't push. She simply kept moving. Called Maya at the gallery, reviewed client lists, quietly packed personal belongings and transported them to a downtown apartment she'd secretly bought years before but never occupied. It was purchased with proceeds from her own art sales. The deed bore only her name. A week later, Ethan's assistant rang, distant but polite. "Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling would like you to come to the office tomorrow at 10 to discuss the agreement details." "Please call me Ellis," Vivian corrected. "And yes, provided Ethan himself is present." The assistant paused. "Mr. Sterling will be in the office tomorrow." After hanging up, Vivian walked to the apartment's floor-to-ceiling window. Traffic flowed endlessly below. The city surged on. She inhaled, picked up her phone, and opened a chat she had almost never initiated. The profile picture was a languid ragdoll cat. The WhatsApp name simply read Sterling. She weighed her words, then typed, "Chase, are you free tomorrow morning? Could you do me a favor?" The reply came almost instantly. "Whenever Big Sis asks, I'm free." "What do you need?" Seeing that familiar, sunshine-bright emoji, Vivian felt a sliver of tension loosen inside her chest. She briefed him on the situation. Chase shot back instantly. "Got it. Send me the address, I'll be on time. Anything I should bring? Dress a little more boyfriend, maybe?" Ortiz even tacked on a doghead emoji for good measure. Vivian laughed, the last scraps of gloom inside her scattering. "No need to try so hard, just be natural." "Thanks, Chase. Since when are we polite? See you tomorrow, sis." She set the phone down and stared out the window. Tomorrow. The next morning, 9:50 a.m., Sterling Industries headquarters speared into the sky, its glass skin throwing back cold daylight. Vivian stepped from the cab wearing a tailored cream suit dress, hair loosely twisted to bare the long line of her neck, makeup light but immaculate. No jewelry, only the bare circle on her left ring finger where a wedding band used to live. She carried a single folder, the finalized divorce papers. A matte gray sports coupe ghosted to the curb beside her. The door scissored up and a man in a pale gray casual suit climbed out. Tall, perfectly proportioned, clothes hanging off an athlete's frame. Hair left untouched, just a natural wave, skin sun-kissed. What caught the eye first was the face, clean, handsome angles, a straight bridge of nose, the faint up-tilt at the corner of his mouth, and a gaze so direct it sat exactly on the fence between boy and man. Chase. 2 years earlier, Ortiz'd been the shy college kid asking timid questions at her exhibition. Now Ortiz carried new weight, though the clear light in his eyes hadn't dimmed. "Sis," Ortiz said, taking the folder without ceremony, smile bright. "Am I late?" "Not at all, perfect timing." His presence melted the chill of walking into Ethan's fortress alone. Ortiz positioned an arm loosely behind her, protective without pressing, announcing enough to onlookers. "Shall we? Time to meet. Mr. Sterling." Ortiz winked. Side by side they entered the Sterling Tower. The receptionist recognized Vivian, surprise flicking across her face. Seeing the unfamiliar, striking young man beside her, and the intimacy, made her forget to speak. Vivian aimed for the executive elevator, swiped her still valid access badge. Inside, mirrored walls reflected the two of them. Chase leaned in, voice low. "Don't stress, sis. You look killer today. We dump the jerk, start the new chapter. Can't lose on style points." Vivian answered with an honest smile. "Right. No nerves." Ding, top floor executive suite. The secretarial pool froze as doors parted. Every assistant knew Vivian. None could keep a professional mask once they spotted the handsome stranger holding her hand. She advanced, Chase in tow, straight to the heavy oak door. It stood ajar. Ethan's voice filtered through, cool, commanding mid-call. Vivian didn't knock. She pushed. The office yawned, black, white, steel, brutal luxury. Ethan stood with his back to them at the plate glass wall. Hearing the intrusion, Ortiz paused, then pivoted. His gaze struck Vivian first, routine appraisal mixed with irritation at the interruption. Then it flicked past her, landing on Chase. Seconds fractured like thin ice. Ethan's composure split. Knuckles blanched around the phone. Eyes darkened to razor-sharp shards, slicing across Chase before pinning Vivian. Cancel the meeting. Ortiz rasped into the phone, never looking away. Without waiting for an answer, Ortiz slammed the handset onto polished mahogany. Vivian. Lo, the storm packed tight behind the word. Care to explain this? She stepped forward, shoulder to shoulder with Chase, feeling him tense at the wave of hostility. Ortiz adjusted instantly, tucking her a fraction closer. I'm delivering the divorce agreement. Avery lifted the folder. And introducing my friend, Chase. Friend. Ethan's glance raked the hand resting at her back. A humorless, glacial smile hooked his mouth. You dragged some boy toy into my office to negotiate divorce? When did you start playing cheap tricks to bait me? Ortiz stalked nearer, height and space weaponized. His stare drilled into her, hunting for the old flinch, the hesitation, the fear Ortiz used to see. Nothing. Only calm distance in eyes that had once looked at him with softness. Mr. Sterling, misunderstanding, Chase interjected, sliding half a pace in front, voice courteous, smile impeccable. Viv's had a rough morning. I'm here to see her through personal business. Amicable endings are classier, don't you agree? Soft words, gloved slaps. Rough morning, personal, amicable, classy. Each syllable smacked Ethan's pride without raising a hand. A breath sawed through Ethan's teeth. Ortiz ignored Chase, glare fixed on her. Bring a toy and think anything changes? Final chance, send him out, we talk alone. He gave a small, slow shake of head. A faint, freeing curve touched her lips. The papers are signed. Review them, sign, forward to Diane for processing. That's all we have left to discuss. She set the folder on the coffee table. Let's go, Chase. She turned. Sam laced fingers through hers. No more pretense, a warm, steady clasp that swallowed her cool skin. The fuse burned to its end. Ethan lunged. Vivian. Chase pivoted, shielding her fully, free arm shooting up to block Ethan's reach. Mr. Sterling, control yourself. Ethan's hand hovered, trembling. His gaze locked on their joined hands, veins pulsing at his temple, chest heaving with the knowledge that what Ortiz always owned had just walked out of his grasp forever. The next second, before anyone could react, Ethan spun around, swung his arm, and swept it across the desk with brutal force. Crash! The priceless jade paperweight, the crystal pen holder, the file rack, the laptop. Everything was flung to the floor in a deafening explosion of shattering glass and splintering plastic. The heavy mahogany desk itself skidded several inches, scraping the hardwood with a shrill screech. Outside, Claire's frightened voice and hurrying footsteps sounded, but no one dared step inside. Shards glittered everywhere. The room was a war zone. Ethan stood with his back to them, shoulders heaving. After a heartbeat of silence, Ortiz turned, pupils bloodshot, glare stabbing at the two figures still framed in the doorway. Ortiz looked ready to tear them apart with his bare hands. Vivian's heart had jumped at the first thunderous crash, yet it settled at once into an arctic calm. Watching the man who had once been immaculate and unruffled now utterly unmoored, she felt only estrangement, and a detached, almost absurd curiosity. So Ortiz could lose control. Not for love, but for loss of control itself, for the fury of a possession slipping his leash. She didn't linger. She squeezed Chase's hand. Let's go. Chase laced his fingers through hers, shielding her with his body, and hurried her out of the office that reeked of rage and rupture, leaving the wreckage and the man teetering on the brink far behind. The elevator dropped. Inside the sealed car, Chase let go and studied her face, worried. Viv, you okay? Did Ortiz scare you? Vivian shook her head, inhaled slowly, exhaled. No. She paused, met his eyes, and said sincerely, Thank you, Chase. Today, I couldn't have done it without you. Chase ruffled his own hair, sunny grin returning, a little sheepish. Happy I could help. That jerk should have been kicked to the curb ages ago. If Ortiz ever bothers you again, just tell me and I'll. Ortiz waved a fist in mock threat, but on his boyish face it looked more adorable than intimidating. Vivian laughed despite herself. The 3-year storm cloud pressing on her heart felt, for the first time, torn open, sunlight leaking through the rip. The divorce papers, Ethan signed. No stalling, no games. 3 days after Vivian moved out of the Sterling mansion and couriered the executed copies to his private address, Diane texted, "Mr. Sterling has signed. Proceedings officially underway." Suspiciously clean. Vivian didn't dig. Outcome was all that mattered. Whether Ethan was furious, resigned, or simply bored was irrelevant now. She threw herself into her new gallery, Lumen. Smaller, farther from the old social orbit, closer to the art academy and the fresh downtown scene. She oversaw the renovation herself. White walls, skylights, blonde wood floors. Nothing like the staid, emerald-paneled space she had curated for Sterling prestige. She hunted gifted unknowns, plotted exhibitions that were finally, utterly hers. Days were exhausting and exhilarating. Chase dropped by between classes. An art management major, Ortiz hauled frames, climbed ladders, charmed contractors, and flirted harmlessly with the interns, all dimples and hey, sis warmth. Vivian sensed the crush, but she wasn't ready. Ortiz never crossed the line, content to be the easy sunshine filtering into her new life. Then one afternoon, Vivian was in the back stockroom, inventorying a shipment of canvases, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Vivian." The voice raspy, raw, almost pleading. "Ethan." She froze. "I'm outside your building." A cold wind seemed to carry through the speaker. 7 days. "I've waited 7 days." She pushed aside the slat of the tiny window. In the visitor slot below sat the familiar black Bentley. A figure leaned against it, shirt wrinkled, head down, cigarette ember winking. A constellation of butts littered the asphalt. Autumn gales whipped leaves around him. Ortiz looked thin, disheveled, nothing like the immaculate titan she knew. "Can we talk?" 5 minutes. "Please. Vivian. Please." The word sounded so alien, almost comical, in Ethan's mouth. She gazed down, unmoved. The hatred had burned out the day she walked. What remained was indifference. "There's nothing left to discuss, Mr. Sterling. The divorce is processing. Speak to Diane." "It's not the divorce." Desperation cracked his voice. "It's me. I was wrong. Wrong." Vivian nearly laughed. Wrong to engrave counterfeit, or wrong to hide to my beloved? Wrong to assume she'd never leave. "None of that matters anymore," she said evenly. "I wish you luck finding your beloved. Don't call again." "Wait." His pitch spiked, raw panic bleeding through. "That kid, Chase, do you even know who Ortiz is? Ortiz has an agenda. Don't trust him." Vivian, come back. "We start over, anything you want, this time I mean it. Even love," she finished, sarcasm finally gleaming. "Your love is something I can't afford and no longer desire. No, listen. Enough." Her voice was calm steel. "Whatever Jamie's agenda, it's no longer your concern. Leave now or I phone the police." Only ragged breathing answered. She hung up, blocked the number, returned to her canvases, heartbeat unruffled. The last dusty mote of the past drifted away. That evening Chase collected her for dinner to celebrate Lumen's first independent show. The new Fusion Bistro glowed with Edison bulbs. Chase picked at his steak, stealing glances. "Spill it," Vivian said, setting down her spoon. Ortiz hesitated. "Ethan was at your place again. A friend in your building told me that Bentley sat there for days, finally left this afternoon." Ortiz didn't do anything? Disgust and worry warred on his face. Ortiz called. "I hung up." End of story. Quinn, she sipped her water. Chase exhaled, but his brows stayed knit. Ortiz sliced his steak in silence, then looked up, eyes serious. End of provided text. "Viv, there's something. I've wanted to tell you for a while, but I kept worrying you'd be mad and think I had ulterior motives." Vivian felt a small flutter in her chest. She could pretty much guess what was coming. She looked at him calmly. "Say it." "My surname is Cameron. The Cameron of Cameron, company my grandfather, is Rowan." The hand Vivian had wrapped around her water glass paused, almost imperceptibly. "Rowan." In the world of high jewelry and bespoke design, the name rang like thunder. Beloved, the ultra-luxury house famed for its romantic lore and consummate craftsmanship, had been founded by him. Rowan himself was a living legend. "So," she heard herself answer, still level, "the founder of Beloved is your grandfather." "Yes." Sam watched her expression closely, and only when Ortiz saw no flash of betrayal did Ortiz continue. "My parents died when I was little. Grandfather raised me. But Ortiz hates it when I trade on the family name, so almost nobody knows I'm connected to Beloved. I studied art management because that's where my own interests lie." Ortiz paused, then rushed on, voice urgent. Viv, I first approached you because I knew you'd married Ethan. There's bad blood between our families. Grandfather detests the Sterlings. 2 years ago, at that art fair, I didn't bump into you by chance. I'd found out you'd be there and went specifically. I wanted to see what kind of woman Ethan had married. The words tumbled out faster now. But almost immediately I realized you were nothing like what people said, nothing like I'd imagined. You're gentle, brilliant, you have your own eye for art. You and Ethan aren't the same species at all. When I learned you were getting divorced, I truly wanted to help, and I truly like you. I wasn't scheming to use you against the Sterlings, honest. I just didn't know how to tell you. Chase's ear tips were scarlet, but his gaze stayed clean and direct, fixed on her as Ortiz waited for her verdict. Vivian listened in silence. So that explained it. The way Ortiz nervously insisted on discussing an obscure canvas the first night they met. The refined instincts that surfaced in small moments. The jealous warning in Ethan's eyes the afternoon Ortiz found Chase in the Sterling penthouse. Her silence stretched until Chase's knuckles whitened around his napkin. Finally Vivian laughed, not in mockery, not in irritation, but with a light, freeing amusement. All that? She asked. Chase blinked, then nodded vigorously. Yes. Viv, you're not mad. Why would I be? She lifted her glass and took a sip. You're you, Ethan's Ethan, and the Camerons are the Camerons. The person I know is Chase, the guy who stage managed a breakup scene with me when I was at my lowest, who carried stretchers and hung track lighting when I started over. Who your grandfather is, her eyes glinted luminous, has nothing to do with me. Chase stared, stunned, then delight flooded his face, bright as sunrise. But, Vivian continued, lowering her glass and propping her chin on her left hand, gaze drifting to the glittering city outside. There's one thing you got wrong. What? Chase asked reflexively. She turned back, smiling. A smile of someone who has sailed through storms and sighted the far shore. I've never needed anyone to give me a ring. She lifted her left hand and wagged it gently. On her ring finger sat a band Ortiz hadn't noticed before. Not Ethan's counterfeit plain band, not the cold, showy beloved solitaire, but something utterly singular. A celestial orbit design, its sweeping bezels of white and yellow gold handset with diamonds in varied sizes. At the center blazed a Padparadska sapphire, its coral peach heart alive with shifting fire. The entire piece felt like a pocket universe caught mid-spin, brilliant, lawless, free. Chase's breath hitched. Ortiz knew unrivaled workmanship when Ortiz saw it. I designed it myself, Vivian said, unruffled yet fierce. Paid for it with the licensing fee from a painting I loved, but never sold. The stone is a loose gemstone a friend sourced in Sri Lanka. The setting was hand-finished by a retired master jeweler. She contemplated the tiny cosmos encircling her finger, eyes soft, iron-certain. It isn't called beloved, and it doesn't mark me as anyone's property. It only stands for Vivian. She lifted her gaze to Chase, smile widening. So, Alex, you can stop worrying about my ring situation. Chase looked at her, at those clear, confident eyes, at that self-forged galaxy sparkling on her hand, and felt his heart detonate. A tidal mix of admiration, desire, and utter surrender crashed over him. For the first time, his illustrious pedigree felt small beside the constellation she had financed and sketched and willed into being. Ortiz reached for his wine, desperate for cover, but couldn't curb the grin splitting his face. Well, Ortiz cleared his throat, fighting for composure. Would the dazzling, self-reliant Vivian do me the honor of accompanying me, next week, to the beloved gala? My grandfather is dying to meet the mind behind that masterpiece. Taylor, eyes sparkling with mischief. In what capacity? As Rowan's grandson or as Chase? Chase straightened, earnestness written across every feature. As Chase, a perfectly ordinary man, currently doing his best to win a date with Vivian. Vivian laughed, lifted her glass, and touched its rim to his. Consider it a date. The crystal sang, a bright, crisp note, like the first measure of a brand-new overture. Outside, city lights braided into a slow, golden river. All memory of counterfeit bands and diamonds labeled, "To my beloved," had been carried off by the autumn wind, scattered through the anonymous night gone.